See, I have to go back
All right.
through all this stuff because it.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whenever it is you tuning in. Hope all is well with you. So on our stage we have
Oh, how you doing,
ah,
ladies and gentlemen? This is R. Chapman. You guys have heard me on the lives in the past with Mad Mike and Atlantis Falcons Nation. As always, man, I'm here to talk some Falcons football, man, past and present.
and then just underneath us we have
You know me, I'm Rip Cliff. I'm in the Discord all the time. Been on the show a couple of times. Um, you know, just trying to go through this and this hypothetical and just kind of seeing how different. And really, the exercise is just maybe to see what we might want to look for in the future, moving forward. With our coaching staffs, kind of thing.
oh yeah. Shout out to the people that are already in here in the chat. Got some early birds here, such as Melvin Emery. So got that for our real roll call. We got Atlanta Nation joining us. We got Floyd Donnelly. Myself
Cool,
and
cool.
us. So what we have going on right now is it was a kind of a weird conversation that we had in Discord the other day, and it was this article that came up about Rex Ryan, like making sure that he knew that it's like, hey, if I got hired in Atlanta, which I wanted to be here twice, I would have brought them a Super Bowl. So this is the what if scenario: is if we hired him back in 2008, how could we lead Rex Ryan to that conclusion where he wins a Super Bowl? Like, how soon does this happen? Like, does it happen right away? Because we went 11-5 without him, despite everything that was going on the year before. Could things have gone even better than that? Could things have gone worse? How do other teams fare? What happens to our draft? What about our free agency period before the season actually started? We can touch
Mm-hmm.
all of that too. So stay with us. I know it seems like kind of a weird time to talk about this as we have a Hall of Fame game, as we have like 3 different shows before this, but it was a kind of an impromptu discussion that we wanted to have, and we didn't want to lose the idea. Uh, all this stuff was like rushing in our heads, and we really just needed to kind of get it out of our system because it was like the more that we dug into it, it was really fascinating to see like how much that one simple hire would have done to the entirety of the league. So strap yourselves in because we're going to have quite the bumpy ride. Now, the first thing I want to do is to introduce, you know me, so you're going to know that I have this coming up. All right. So at the moment, here we have our head coach being Mike Smith, current head offensive coordinator being Michael Malarkey, current defensive coordinator at the time being Brian Van Gorder. Now, if we switch Mike Smith out with Rex Ryan, obviously we have to question about, okay, well, Mike Malarkey, Ryan Van Gorder, how do they fare? Especially when I take a look at another screen that I have, not definitely not the last one that I will show, but here we have coaching changes. So this was everything that was going on in the 2008 period from the Black Monday, from where coaches generally get fired to when a lot of these shifts happen. So here we are, Mike Smith, Mike Malarkey, Brian Van Gorder. This happened here. At the same time, however, we had Ken Wisenhunt being signed by Arizona, John Harbaugh being signed by Baltimore, Sony Sperano being hired by Miami, Jim Zorn being hired by Washington. But take a look at some of these names in offensive coordinator. We had Todd Haley. We have Chan Gailey. We have Mike Martz. We have, I don't know, maybe Al Sanders. We definitely have a name there. We also have some interesting defensive coordinators like Mike Zimmer, uh, like another certain person that, yeah. So, and not to mention, Mike Smith himself was a defensive guy out of Jacksonville. So maybe we can still hire both of them. Don't really know how they would gel with each other, but Rip, you were talking about how the organization was feeling about, or at least like the reason as to why they went with Mike Smith over Rex Ryan. Could you kind of expand on that for us?
Yeah, sorry if you guys hear some pant. My dog's freaking out over here. But yeah. So what I was saying was the reason that we went Mike Smith instead of Rex Ryan, in my mind, is that we were just we're coming off the Mike Vick era. We had that egg on our face. We also had, what's his face that went to Arkansas. Like I said, his mind, he's so irrelevant to me, I forget his name. But we were coming off of that, and so we went with stability over the flash. Because Rex Ryan is a bolsterous guy. He's a rah guy, but he's also kind of controversial. I mean, even in his press conferences, he's a little controversial. We didn't want that at that time, and so we went with Mike Smith, who is just plain Jane. Like, he is bland. I mean, nothing against him, but he is a very bland coach, a very by the book and stable. And I think they felt like that was the direction they needed to go at that time.
If Oatmeal was a head coach, that would be Mike Smith. Atlanta Nation had to mention the name, of course. But,
Oh Lord! Oh, I hate anytime I see that name. I just want to. Anytime I see him on the street, I want to just punch him in his face. Oh, I hate that dude.
But then I remember him in the neck brace that he had while he was like getting fired at his own talk show or something.
I mean, to this day, Bob Petrino is one of the most hated, if not hated, guy in the state of Georgia. I mean, now I don't want to go off on a tangent or nothing, but it's just the way you left the organization, and you left the players with a little note on their lockers.
He's Lane Kiffin before Lane Kiffin.
That's a perfect example right there. Oh my God. Perfect example.
So, yeah, we had to clear some stench. Figured out we needed to swap one mic with another. Instead, we could have, added another Ryan to the mix, but, it is what it is.
Yeah. Like I said, I think that the organization at that point was just looking for the most stable, most bland people that you could get. I mean, even like, as much as I love Matt Ryan, if you wanted just standards, Oatmeal, like he's the quarterback. Like, and that's nothing against him. I mean, it's not even anything against Mike Smith, but that's just where the organization was at that point.
Yeah, they just needed to fly under the radar for a moment, but they didn't really do that all that well because they actually started to have success. So we're going to talk about that success a little bit later on, but I highlighted a name, a certain signing from Houston, offensive coordinator. If we were to get Rex Ryan, what do you think Kyle Shanahan would have done if he would join us?
I don't know. I don't know if Rex Ryan would have went that way in that direction, but if he did, I think they would have been highly successful. The only caveat was Kyle Shanahan was not Kyle Shanahan at that point, because Gary Kubiak is who developed him. As far as, like, everyone talks about his dad, but he really doesn't run his dad's scheme. He runs Gary Kubiak's scheme. So I think if Kyle Shanahan came at that point, we're looking at a different Kyle Shanahan. So, and honestly, with Rex Ryan being a new head coach and being how he is, I think he would more lean towards a more veteran guy, like he did when he went to the New York Jets. Was it Schottenheimer he hired, or I can't remember who he hired in 2009, but he hired a veteran coordinator to go along with. So I think he'd more lean towards that. But if Kyle Shanahan did come, I don't think we're getting Kyle Shanahan of 2015 or beyond.
That was Brian Schottenheimer.
Brian Schottenheimer, yeah. So,
I mean, it depends. I mean, my thing with Shanahan, it depends. Because a lot of people don't know when Matt Ryan was in Boston College. Um, his offense, I think it was his head coach or his offensive coordinator. The offense they ran up there was straight West Coast, a West Coast offense. So it to me it depends. If they did get Kyle Shanahan at that time, to me I feel like there would have been some form of continuity because we, as we've all said in the past, the issue with the last regime, which is Thomas Dimitrov, Mike Smith, and later on with DQ, there wasn't continuity, especially on the offensive side of the ball. So I feel like if we had someone like a Kyle Shanahan or someone else that I could say that had their own little version of the West Coast offense, because there's different variants. Gary Kubiak, the late great Dennis Green, what's his name? The guy that I think he was the offensive coordinator for the Eagles. I think was it Morny Mornawig, I think, back then at that time. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I
I
see
mean,
what you're saying.
you
And
had. Go ahead.
and
Go ahead.
one thing, I'm sorry. One thing Kyle Shanahan would bring to the table is an aggressive mentality that we lacked
Yes.
under the Smith era. He would not be one to just whatever system he's running. He's not going to run it, you know, the way anyone else, everyone else runs it. Like he's going to run it his way. It's going to be his way, and we're going to be going. And it hit him in the ass in the Super Bowl because he let his ego get the best of him, and Belichick checked him, at the door. But I think if we did go that route, this team would be aggressive on both sides of the ball, like nothing we've seen. Like we would be doing crazy shit.
I mean, we would be because I think as I've said, earlier before we started the live and whatnot. The one thing you could say about Rex Ryan, that he was a bully. If he knew that Kyle Shanahan was going to do some stupid stuff like that, like he did in the Super Bowl, he'd be like, no, 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 call a timeout or say it over the headset. No, we're running this football. It's just, as you stated it before, the lack of aggression. That was the downfall for the former regime, the lack of aggression, you know, not putting boot to neck on other teams to get the job done. So I feel like if we did have a Rex Ryan with a Kyle Shanahan, not only there'd be some form of continuity, there would be accountability at the same time. You hold everybody accountable. The head coach, offense coordinator, defense coordinator, all across the board from top to bottom. Everybody would have a sense of accountability, but we didn't have that. It's kind of like the last regime. It was like a country club. I have this saying about the last regime. I call them the country club Falcons because that's what they were. No
Yeah.
continuity,
It
no
wasn't so much
accountability.
a team as it was like a reservation for a,
Yes,
a vacation. You know,
pretty much. I mean, that's what it was. And at certain times you just say like, what was our identity? That was the issue. Because it was always a yearly occurrence. Like, yo, man, like, what's the identity of the Falcons? Now, if we had somebody like Rex Ryan as the head coach and Kyle Shanahan as an OC back then, we would have an identity. We wouldn't be changing offenses or offensive coordinators all the freaking time. We would already have a system set in place, the offensively and defensively.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and you got Shanahan, which I think Shanahan would probably eventually leave for a head coaching job, but you're definitely giving him more stability than what he had. Um, with I think he's not gonna get a head coaching job like in 2008 going to like 2010. Like it's gonna be like probably 11, 12 before he takes that leap in this timeline. You know, um, just because that's how a lot of people view. Like he was so young, maybe Um, but I think Rex Ryan would also, whenever Shanahan did leave, he'd look for the next guy that he thought was going to be a Shanahan-like comparable. He's not going to do like Dan Quinn. Where Dan Quinn messed up the most was when he went to I don't know why I'm blanking on everybody's face, but Booger Eater. That's what I call it. Yeah, I'm blanking on people's names, but you know what I'm talking about.
Steve Sarkisian. Are you talking about him?
Yeah, dude. I don't know why my brain's not working right now, but
Understandable.
That was where he messed up because he not only brought Sarkisian, who was like a reject basically at that point, but he was like, no, you run this scheme, you run this other person's scheme and learn it completely and run it the way he did. And like he didn't even get to bring his own system in, when he had people that were under Shanahan that we could have easily replaced him with.
Yeah, it would have been like plug and play. I mean, I agree with you wholeheartedly on that because you had the quarterbacks coach, which was Matt LaFleur. You had an offensive assistant, which was Mike LaFleur, his brother, and to not give them consideration to become the offensive coordinator, you bring someone like Steve Sarkisian, who at one point, I think going back to 2004, the only time he did time in the NFL was 2004 as a quarterbacks coach. That was the only time he set foot in the NFL at that time.
And you know what? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. No, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, again, my tongue on jumbled up, but what I was saying was, you mean to tell me you bring in someone like Steve Sarkisian, who only had one other time as a quarterbacks coach with the Oakland Raiders, you bring him in when this team is just coming off a Super Bowl loss? I don't want to bring that up because I don't want to open up old wounds. You bring somebody that doesn't know the offense when you had two other guys that you could have said, hey man, hey, I want you to be the OC. Man, but especially Matt LaFleur would have been perfect. But Dan Quinn, a lot of people don't know, Dan Quinn said that, Matt LaFleur wasn't qualified for the job. What do you mean? What are you saying? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, because a lot of people have said in the past, a lot of people have said in the past, Matt LaFleur wanted to go to the Rams. Well, first of all, he wasn't the full OC there. He was the co-offensive coordinator. Two, I don't know if people know this, but with coordinators or position coaches or whatever, they cannot take a job at another place if there's an equal promotion at the place they're already at. So if we would have said, hey, you're promoted to offensive coordinator, he legally, by the law, the rules of the league, he could not decline that and go to the Rams to accept a similar position.
Yeah, because that's in the CBA. I think it's in the collective bargaining rights.
Yeah.
I just felt like, with all things being considered, with all things being, with that being said, I just feel like the way that things occurred with the former regime, let's say again, we did have a Rex Ryan. I don't think we would lose. I don't think we would lose guys like Matt LaFleur or Mike LaFleur or Kyle Shanahan for that matter. Because the reason why I say it, and hear me out, I'm saying it based on the fact that those guys were already here from the start, from the jump. You already have your quarterback. You have three pieces.
Yeah,
They're going with you.
Yeah,
everyone's going
definitely. The only reason we would lose him is if he was so successful that he would get a head coaching gig somewhere.
Yeah. I mean,
so
but
if we had to scale all of this back, because we got to make a decision for Rex Ryan. He comes in.
I think go Shanahan because I think that's a good. I mean, while I do think that he would look for veteran leadership potentially, I think bringing that aspect into it makes this a whole lot more interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So we have Kyle Shanahan. Supposedly, he's going to replace Mike Mularkey. Now, with our defensive coordinator spot, now we know about Rex Ryan's ability to coach the defense, but
Right.
does this defensive coordinator here, does he take this sort of like kind of Dave Ragone role, or does he actually kind of like have more say in what's going on? So
Well,
does he take a guy like Mike Zimmer and just let him do his thing, or does he take a guy, like what Brian Grant
I
Gordon
don't
was,
think
and
he
just be
takes
like, hey,
yeah, I think he takes a coordinator, but I don't think he takes a like strong like I'm going to run my because Rex Ryan's going to run his defense,
right,
right? So he wants to bring like a general into the fold where you go off my orders. I'm above you. It's top down kind of thing when it comes to the defense. Now offense, he's probably a little bit more hands off. But when it comes to the defense, he's going to bring in a guy that he is in control. Like obviously, the defensive coordinator is going to run the day to day, call some plays, things like that. But like, it's going to be through Rex Ryan.
so does this change then? Because I don't think that what you're saying about this role, like that doesn't seem like Mike Zimmer. That doesn't seem like Greg Williams, obviously. That doesn't seem like some of these other candidates here. That obviously did fit the description of what Brian was for us at the time. Because he was, kind of letting Mike Smith do his thing.
Let me see. His defensive coordinator in New York was Mike Pettinine or whatever his name is.
Oh, Mike Pettin?
Yeah, Mike Pettin.
Mike Pettin. Yeah, Mike Pettin, current. I think Mike Pettin is the current.
For the Falcons, right?
He might
No,
he might have brought him
I'm
a
sorry,
year
yeah,
early.
Packers. I got that mixed up because when I said Mike Pettin, going back because Mike Pettin was the Browns coach at one point, and then he went to Green Bay as the defensive coordinator. So my bad, got that jumbled up.
I would almost say he would do the same thing if he was hired in Atlanta a year earlier, because Mike Pettin was the outside linebackers coach for the Baltimore Ravens at the time. And usually especially if they're like a Rex Ryan, they're going to promote from their previous team. So that's my vote. I think he would do something like that because that's just I don't see him doing like a Mike Zimmer or whatever because I think they would clash too much on what they wanted to do. Rex Ryan wants a yes man when it comes to defense.
So is that what Mike Pettin would be then?
I mean, you know what I'm saying. I'm not saying like a yes man in that he doesn't have any say or anything, but the ultimate decision is going to come from Rex Ryan. Whereas if you got a Mike Zimmer, like Mike Zimmer ain't going to play that. Like he's going to run his defense.
Mike Pettin and Greg, I mean, as much as I would want them on the staff, because both Mike Zimmer and Greg Ryan, a lot of their defense is very aggressive. It's very blitz heavy. We know with Rex Ryan, he loves blitzing. He loves outside blitz. Yeah. He loves all that. I mean, blitzing coming from everywhere.
If they could balance their egos, it'd be perfect. But I just don't think they could do that. Both of them. I don't think they could balance that. I think it would be detrimental to the team long term if they were on the same team just because of the people that they are.
I mean, but it could work. I mean, I'm just saying. I'm not saying that Mike Pettin wouldn't work. Because when you think about it, if you go back to the 2000 Ravens defensive staff, you had a lot of guys on that staff that had big egos. A lot of them were hard heads, but they went and got the job done.
I by no means am saying that Mike Pettin isn't a good coach or that he wouldn't have a say in it or anything like that. I'm just saying that he would. I mean, he proved that he went to New York and they were able to work together well there. I think that Rex Ryan would have looked similar at that point. Was Zimmer, was he on the Ravens coaching staff?
As a matter of fact, Zimmer was actually with the Falcons. People forget he was part of the staff.
I'm talking about before 2008, before 2008 when he got hired for the Bengals. Was he on the Ravens staff or where was he at that point?
I'm trying to remember.
I'm looking at it right now because I mean that could play a role too. Because I mean, like I said, Rex Ryan's most likely for the defense. He is promoting somebody from that Ravens staff.
I think
Or
he.
better
I think
yet,
he was
I
with
got one for
us.
you. I got one for you. Hold on. You could have brought back Wade Phillips.
That's a yeah. Like I said, with that, I just I think you have to find so like when you're building a staff, right? You gotta they're like there's a point. They're great coordinators, right? Like they're great. No one's denying that. But like how they would work as a unit together, it's like if you brought Kyle Shanahan in with Arthur Smith as the head coach, right? Kyle Shanahan's the offensive coordinator. Arthur Smith is the head coach, right?
You got a bit of oil and water there.
Yeah, exactly. They're both great coordinators, and like if they could set their feelings and egos aside and work together, they would make it. I mean, magic. It would be magical. But I don't think those two types of personalities would go well together because Shanahan's going to want to do what he wants to do, and Arthur Smith is like, no, I'm running my team the way I want to run it. So that's why you bring in like a Ragone with Arthur Smith because not anything against Ragone, he's just more malleable to what Arthur Smith needs in his coordinator.
Yeah,
Right?
a figurehead, pretty much. I got you. Because sometimes you got to have a figurehead, just like much as the Saints. Pete Carmichael, he's the offensive coordinator. He was supposedly the offensive coordinator. Sean Payton was running the plays.
Right. You want a guy like if you got a guy like Sean Payton or Arthur Smith, you want a guy that he runs the day to day. Eric Bieniemy is the perfect example of what you want in a coordinator when you got a very very big personality at the head coaching position that was a former coordinator, right? So I think something like that, and I think that what we were going with Mike Pettin fits that mold better than a Zimmer.
Yeah, because we actually let go of Zimmer in 2007 before this.
Exactly right. So
Yeah.
and
So having him as an higher option doesn't make that much sense anymore.
Yeah, we're
So the
probably
reason for our for our listeners, the reason as to why we're focusing so much time on this is because this is how the structure of the team is going to be laid moving forward.
Yeah.
Does certain trades
changes.
happen or not happen? Does certain acquisitions happen or not happen? Like this is why we're focusing. It's like, hey, let's get this down first. Let's get an identity of the team, and then we can move from there. Because if you get a Kyle Shanahan here, I don't know if Michael Turner shows up here.
Yeah, because he's going to want a different type of running back than
And there was several
gap
opportunities for running backs in the draft.
Well, and Turner was a gap scheme running back. He was a gap scheme like because he didn't he was I'm gonna hit this hole or I'm gonna make another one. That was his. If this hole's open, I'm gonna hit it.
Yeah, and
Not open, I'm
Shanahan.
gonna make one.
Yeah, and Shanahan when he came to, we all know with his offense, it was all about the outside zones. Outside zone running game. And I would say, Michael Turner, in that offense, I don't think he would fit. Because usually with Mike Mularkey, he was all about running the ball, man. Run first offense. Very heavy. With the play action and everything. I don't know. I'm not saying it wouldn't work, but
I don't think we'll go that direction. Yeah, I don't.
Because when we got Michael Turner, we still had work done on the roster.
Yeah,
although he was kind of nearing his last.
Yeah. I don't think Shanahan would have kept work done. I don't. Because Roddy White, he likes to cut the fat, so to speak. Not saying that Roddy White wasn't, but you know what I mean. You get what I'm saying, though. He don't like aging players. he would rather bring in his own guys.
Yeah, because we had to relieve some aging players. Wayne Gandy was another one. He was like 37 at this time.
Yeah.
Rod Coleman we had to let go of. Obviously, the two quarterbacks in Joey Harrington and Byron
We
Leftwich.
had Jarius Norwood.
Joe Horn we had to cut. Obviously, also Algie Crumpler. He went to the Titans, I want to say. That's another Titan that went to another former Falcon that went to the Titans. And
I know.
had a forgettable career there.
He had so at that time, was Snelling on the roster at that time? Or when did
I think Snelling came later. Jarius Norwood was here.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think Snelling, he came. I think he came in the draft. 2009, 2010. I think he came in the draft.
Yeah, he did. He was like a later round pick. 2000. No, he was already here. 2007. So he was already on the roster.
Oh.
So what if we do this instead of us getting Michael Turner? You have a backfield of we cut Wart Dunn. Say Wart Dunn is gone. Jarius Norwood and Snelling in the backfield.
Yeah, but the thing about Snelling, I mean, the same, not Snelling, but Norwood. The problem with him is that he always had, he was kind of prone to injuries.
He was prone to injuries. He was mostly used as a gadget guy, mostly used as a special teams guy.
Here's my thinking. Remember, Kyle Shanahan liked his fullbacks, right?
Yeah,
he did have Ovi Mahaley.
Yeah, exactly. He had Ovi Mahaley, but so you have Snelling, right? He's backing up Ovi Mahaley or whatever, right? At the time, Jarius Norwood gets injured, and he goes to Snelling because I think Snelling is one of the most underutilized players that the Falcons have ever had. Like he was a stud anytime he got an opportunity, and I think it would be interesting to see a offense that features Snelling in a very prominent role. And then maybe Norwood, is a little bit healthier than, was. Hopefully,
Yeah, we could go that route. Or we can take a look at, because I'm going to share another side of the screen. Because we had, like I said, we have plenty of opportunities for running backs in the draft class. So let's take a look at this.
Someone just asked a question about the coordinators. We just went over that. We'll pull up the screen. But yeah, the coordinators changed entirely.
Right. So in this scenario, in this what if scenario, if you're like tuning in and you need a recap, I put everything you need to know in the description. That kind of lets you know just a brief synopsis of what we're doing with. So what we have here is obviously I think the Falcons they keep Matt Ryan there. Dolphins and Rams, they go with the longs. It's a no-brainer at this point. Falcons, no matter who they have a coach, no matter who they have a coordinator, they have to take Matt Ryan here because that's what the franchise needed at the time. Okay, so that stays in stone. But the next thing that happens, we end up with this trade for the 21st pick with the Redskins. It has quite a bit of value into it. And we take Sam Baker there. It was a pick before Aqib Talib or a pick after Aqib Talib. But take a look at some of these names. Because at the moment our next pick would have been the 34th pick in the draft. Okay,
right.
Taken at 34th, Devin Thomas. I don't care about Devin Thomas, but in between this, we had Rashard Mendenhall, Chris Johnson. If you wanted a left tackle, Dwayne Brown. If you wanted another corner, Antoine
Dwayne Brown would have been perfect.
Keep the trade and get Chris Johnson because that would be interesting. Because I really do think that Kyle Shanahan would be looking. It's like you got Jarius Norwood and you got Snelling, but they're really not like Jarius Norwood's been having injury issues even at that point, and Snelling is a 7th round pick. So it's not like you're planning on featuring him. That was just a scenario where injuries put him in the lineup and he shows it. But Chris Johnson would be a perfect person.
And even if you don't want Chris Johnson here, maybe you take the tackle. Maybe you go with Dwayne Brown. It's fine. It's not like Sam Baker started a bunch of games for us anyways. That was still Todd Weiner.
Yeah.
But let's move further. If we want to go in the route of taking a running back, we have Matt Forte showing up later on. We
Right.
have
So you could have taken him
Ray
at, but if you don't
Rice
do the
showing
trade.
up later on. We have, let me get his name showing up here just a second. Jamal Charles in the 3rd round.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
have, let's take a look.
And it's
But it's
kind of
like
like
there was options here.
a Kyle Shanahan would know because you have to admit our drafts for offensive players and the values that we got of offensive players increased with Shanahan. I know he's only here for 2 years, but like he recognized he knew what he wanted. Now I don't know what he would be in 2008. Like I said, Gary Kubiak played a huge role in his development,
Yeah.
but I still think that Kyle Shanahan's been around the game his entire life, so he knows what to look for. And if he's going off his dad's model, there's a lot of running backs that fit that mold too, because his dad was a run first guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That was his offense. But I mean, this is a team thing, but I really am interested in if we were to trade up and get a Chris Johnson. That sounds interesting to me. I would be fine with a
Yeah.
Matt Forte as well, but
It was right there for the taking if we wanted to take that trade. Keep that there because with the trade, all right, let's take a look at the results from that. So, at the time, this was Washington. Okay, so they took Devin Thomas, they took Fred Davis, turned out to be a pretty good tight end for them. They took William Hayes, no one cares, and then we took Sam Baker, we took Harry Douglas, and we took Croy Bierman.
I think we've kind of
Obviously,
won.
we can change Harry Douglas later on. You can change Corey Bierman if you want, but we're not going to be focusing on too many of those selections. However, if you wanted Harry Douglas, but a better version, but even later in this draft class, Pierre Garçon was like a 7th rounder. I'm just saying. I think around the 5th round, I noticed a couple of other like noticeable pass rushers as well. So there was some other people that you could have thrown into the mix as well. We're not going to give ourselves always the best case scenario.
No, definitely, because I
that's
think
just overkill. That's just way too
right.
easy to do.
Yeah, but I really think if you wanted to go with the trade, like, do you think the Chris Johnson thing would be overkill? Do you think they would be have that much for? Because see, Chris Johnson had a lot of buzz around him because he ran the damn fastest 40 in history. He had
a lot of buzz. But he was still taken later on. Like he was not the first running back taken.
Right. Yeah, because you had Adrian Pierce one in this one. But who was McFadden? Yes, I knew it was a big name guy. Yeah. So
Jonathan Stewart, even too.
Yeah, I mean, because my thing is, like, Kyle Shanahan would be, especially being a young, aggressive coach. I think he would be intrigued by that. Especially, we don't really have a running back on the roster that would really pique his interest.
Yeah, because I'm just imagining. But just imagine having someone like a Chris Johnson, hypothetically, and we're speaking hypotheticals here. To have a guy like him at running back, you got to really think about the dimension. Like he can put him here, he can put him there, he can move him here, you can put him in motion.
He's a Kamara before Kamara. He's Alvin Kamara before Kamara.
Exactly.
And here's the thing: you just drafted Matt Ryan. You're gonna want to give him a piece. Which is why we traded up to get Sam Baker, because you were looking to get you get your quarterback and then you get a left tackle. Well, in this scenario, you get your quarterback and then you get him a star running back.
Because we already had a left tackle in Todd Weiner.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And Chris Johnson was kind of an unknown commodity. I mean, he had buzz around him and hype, but he was also from ECU, so there was a lot of people that's why he kind of fell further. But I think a Rex Ryan and a Kyle Shanahan team is going to be like, we see tools this kid has. We're going to take the upside, and I think Does he have the same career here that he had in Tennessee? I don't know. Who knows? But I think that would be a very interesting scenario.
The last thing though that we have to discuss is that intrigue enough worthy of making the trade? Because if we're not enticed enough by him, then we don't make this trade at all, and we don't stay here. And instead, we can kind of lean back and take Matt Forte instead, who I think could also fit.
But I also think that this coaching staff would be an aggressive coaching staff on all fronts, and trading up would be something if they really like the guy. Now Rex Ryan would be like, I want some defensive guys, but that comes later in the process, because I really think that Rex Ryan would be like, I'm going to get the defense straight. Just give you a couple of pieces on offense that get you going, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, at the moment, like you didn't have a whole lot of other options in between the spots where we would have been selecting from. Like not a whole lot that you would have missed, other than maybe a corner or two.
Because when you think about it, it's all about value, what you're getting for. If you would have stayed put, like what were your options? Defensively. But one thing I can say about Rex is like he knows how to find. He knew how to find those diamonds in the rough, man. That's a lot of things people don't want to give Rex Ryan credit for. He would find those diamonds in the rough. But again, it always goes back to value. Like what player do you need on your team that's going to pay dividends for you?
But I think they would see Chris Johnson as a game changer. Like, I don't think you make that trade for. I don't think they make that trade for Sam Baker. I don't even think they make that trade for Dwayne Brown. Like if they're gonna go be aggressive, they're gonna get a guy that they think is gonna change the direction of the team.
Oh yeah, because it's all about establishing a foundation. It's all about establishing an identity, and with that being said, having a Rex Ryan and a Kyle Shanahan, it's like you're letting the whole league know that we're going to be an aggressive team. From both sides of the ball. So you want to have players that match that same identity as your head coach and your offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator at that.
It was a different scheme, but Michael Turner brought stability to the team for Matt Ryan and helped him a lot in the sense that it wasn't all on him, on his shoulders at that point. We actually did a good job at that point. We had a decent offensive line. We had, a running game to where Matt Ryan didn't have to do it all.
By the way, since you want to bring up the O-line, we still had, like I said, Ty Weiner, left tackle, and then from left to right, we had Harvey Dahl, Justin Blaylock, Mud Duck, and Tyson Clabo. Like that was our line, and that was going to stay that way for the next five or so years.
Yeah, and I don't think that Rex Ryan and them would be dumb enough to let those guys go without having adequate replacements for them before they let them go.
Exactly.
And we go back to the hypothetical.
But like you just said, and Noah, you can attest to this because I know I've said this in the Discord for a long time. If we had a Rex Ryan, he would have made sure that the offensive and defensive lines were always a priority, whether it was free agency or the draft, because that was our main issue with the former regime. It was always patchwork with both sides of the ball. There was not enough stronger emphasis in the trenches. And Reb, I've said this time and time again in the Discord, if you don't have them trenches right, you're not winning anything.
Our fans have never realized that, right? I mean, there are people, but they talk about Julio Jones. And granted, I love Julio Jones for what he did in Atlanta. I'm not discrediting him or not, but you have to look at it from a perspective of if we had a coach that could, obviously with the regime we had, it was probably better to do that trade and get Julio. because they weren't going to do anything with those other picks. They were going to do the Browns thing to us if they kept those picks, because they were looking at Gabe Karimi to be picked in the first round if they didn't trade up for Julio. So that just tells you everything you need to know about our drafting at that point in time. So I think in reality, the Julio Jones trade was a very big win for us. But if we flip it, and that'll be later on, with Rex Ryan, you want to keep your picks because you want to build depth and build the trenches, like you said, because that's more important than even having a flash receiver. We already had Roddy White, so you know, we had receivers, already. Michael Jenkins was all right,
I
but
mean, because
Yeah.
both of them were first round picks too. So I mean, you have your receivers, you have your quarterback, you have your running back, whatever it been, Snelling and Chris Johnson. You have your line. Your line was already good. So I could say, in a way, the rest of the picks for the '08 draft and so on and so forth, all you had to focus on was the defense.
and that's what Rex Ryan would want to do. So I think he gives Kyle Shanahan these two picks. He goes, "You get these picks. We're being aggressive. You get Chris Johnson. You get Matt Ryan. We've got you an offensive line. We'll get you guys some guys in free agent. Obviously, we'll still draft offensive players sometime, but our focus from here on out is defense first."
Yeah, our next pick after this, non-trade, was Curtis Lofton. Does that say the same?
I think so. Because I
Me
think
too.
I
Yeah.
think Curtis Lofton was a very decent player for us, and I think he would even be even better being coached by a defensive-minded coach like Rex Ryan. And uh, I don't know, Rob Ryan might have been in the New Orleans whenever he went to the Saints. When he left us, I mean, I'm not sure who the defense coordinator was at that time, but he definitely was around that time. Rob Ryan. Um, so I think Curtis Lofton stays here long term if Rex is his coach. So I think that stays the same.
Possibly. All right. So then our next pick after that, we traded away that one for Fred Davis. So then we don't get our next pick until
Chevis Jackson, I think.
pick 84, where we took Harry Douglas.
Harry Douglas. Okay. I think that what what options on defense do we have?
After this was Tom Zukowski, a safety. You had Cliff Averill, Philip Wheeler.
Cliff Averill, dude.
Oh, yeah. And you know how Rex, he loves
Yeah,
his
Rex
pass
is gonna
rush.
want pass rush. He's
He
gonna
loves his
want
pass
pass rush.
rush. And I'm trying to
And
remember
then
who. I'm trying to remember in between '08. I'm talking about from '08 till 2010, 2011. Who's out there as far as nose tackle? Because we already know with running a 3-4 defense, which Rex Ryan prefers. You got to have your nose tackle. You got to have that guy in the middle. Because if you don't have that, you don't have a 3-4. Trying to see, was Damian Harrison out at that time?
he was later. Yeah, he was a bit later. He was a bit later than that. But then our next pick after that, because the compensatory pick was Thomas Dakoud. A few picks later after that was Tyvon Branch. I mean, I guess he did something. I kind of remember him. But yeah, after this, Dwight Lowry. Want to stay?
And again, I don't want it to
Quentin
feel like
Demps.
we're just like, oh, these are all money picks. I don't want to be that, because like later on, I've got some picks that I think Rex Ryan would have still made, that he made with the Jets and stuff, that didn't really pan out. So this isn't like saying like, oh, everything would just be gold.
Yeah, everything
Yeah,
would have
but
been perfect.
these are
That
just
just not
some
how it
other
worked.
notable names.
But we definitely wouldn't be drafting Harry Douglas in the third in this scenario. I don't think.
Yeah, because at the moment, like, you have John Abraham, right? And then you have whatever was left of the Jamal Anderson experiment.
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
previous
Jamal.
year.
And Jamal Anderson had just been taken, so the year before, so Rex Ryan might have been kind of because if you ever look at Jamal Anderson's college tape, he is not a bad like you could see what everyone was kind of hyping about, and he might have had a completely different career with a guy like Rex Ryan who could come in and be like, "Hey, dude, like this is what we do here," you
Well,
know.
Rip, it's like you and I have always said, coaching will make or break your football team. I mean,
Yeah.
when you as a coach or a coaching staff for that matter, if you don't put your players in the position to be successful, nothing will work. I really feel like if you did have a Rex Ryan with a Jamal Anderson, his career would have panned out. Would have could have, he could have been here.
It might not have been great. It might not have been great, but it would probably been
He
better
would have
than
been
what it
decent.
was.
I
Yeah,
mean, he
I
would have
think
been decent,
he
but
would have recorded a sack at least or something.
at least.
he would have got after the quarterback a little bit. Yeah. I mean, there's not much worse that you could get than what Jamal Anderson gave us,
Yeah, he would have been serviceable. I'll just say that he
but
would have
I
been serviceable.
yeah
Because at least he would have had the coaching staff to put him out there where he can make plays. He can, he could. Everybody could say like, "Damn, dude." I mean, even though we drafted him high, at least he's been a serviceable player for us. But when you look at, the coaching staff that when you get drafted and you head to a city, a team for that matter, and it doesn't work, sometimes I don't want to blame the players too much because, as I said before, the coaching sometimes coaching will make you or break you.
yeah yeah 100%. I think that even with Jamal Anderson here and John Abraham, I honestly think that Eric Ryan would also be looking at John Abraham and be like, we need to get somebody in here so that whenever the time comes that John Abraham is long in the tooth, because he was already getting kind of up there. He was when was he drafted like uh oh
2000,
two or something like that?
Yeah, probably
2006,
like 2000.
2007. Because Richmond K traded for
Mm.
John Abraham because
Yeah, but
John
whenever
Abraham was
when was he
drafted.
drafted though? Was it 2000? Was it the 2000 draft that he was drafted?
I think like 2002 he was
Yeah.
drafted.
So he was like in the prime. So you're not really necessarily, but he's
Matter
a
of fact,
very
check that.
expensive
Check
player.
his draft. No, as a matter of fact, go back and check John Abraham's draft, like the year he was drafted, because I remember.
They the Jets
Um,
took two defensive
yeah, because it was the
linemen.
Jets. Because Richmond K traded for John Abraham. He gave up a first round pick for him.
Oh, he
Right.
was a first round pick in the 2000 draft.
Yeah, yeah. So he
Hmm.
he so he so we're talking about just age here. We're not talking about obviously the trades already happened. But what I'm saying is like Rex Ryan is looking at, okay, you got a guy going into his ninth year, right? Because it's I know it's kind of weird the years because it's 2008 from 2000 to 2008, but it's really like his ninth year because he played in 2000. I don't know, whatever. Ninth year. So you're looking at a guy like that maybe in a couple of years you might want to look to move on from because he's a lot of money and he's older. So I think that would be a prime time. You're coming in, you're wanting to make a statement to bring in a guy like Cliff Averill, um, to be, he could be a rotation guy at first, and then it would probably end up that Jamal Anderson is probably not performing to the standards of Rex Ryan. He probably played better than he did in his history, but I still think that we would move on from him at some point. And then you got Cliff Averill and Abraham for a few years.
All
But
right,
Yeah,
so
it sounds
just
good.
the first two extra
yeah,
picks outside after Matt Ryan. We've already given this team Kyle Shanahan, Mike Pettin, Chris Johnson, and Cliff Averill. Now, I, if we want to continue with the third round discussions, I think we can probably like move on to what this does with the development and how this plays into our actual schedule, because this might be pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Because if we went 11-5 with the team that we had, and I looked at all the transactions from February to September, we did a bunch of nothing.
Yeah. We really brought in Michael
Ultimately.
Turner and Matt Ryan, and that pretty much changed
Yeah,
everything.
so just the last few things, like I said, like we brought in Michael Turner, which was good. At the time we had we either brought in or brought back Grady Jackson. So if you want a 3-4 guy, a nose tackle, maybe there's your answer there.
Oh,
Although
definitely.
he's
And we had
probably
Babs too at that time.
Yeah, big gravy.
uh,
I mean, if you would have kept him, like, yeah, you already had your nose tackle. That
And
means
we
your
let
defense
go
was
of
good.
Rod Coleman.
Yeah.
We traded away D'Angelo Hall, and then we had probably got desperate and then traded for Dominic Foxworth,
yeah.
who
I
then
never
started like,
understood that trade. I never
yeah.
understood that trade.
So I mean, because the trade happened like way after, after the fact. Does this D'Angelo Hall trade not happen? Like, do we get to keep D'Angelo Hall and put him alongside Chris
Well,
Houston?
did that happen before we signed Mike Smith, or had
That
Mike Smith?
happened after.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
What was the D'Angelo Hall thing about? D'Angelo Hall wanted to get paid or something, didn't he? Or he was
Probably because he was
yeah.
drafted at 4. He
Yeah,
probably had his.
that's a good question. If Rex Ryan's there, does but that would change what we did because you wouldn't be able to trade up for Chris Johnson at that point if you don't do the D'Angelo trade.
Yeah, it's probably the capital that we would have needed in order to make that deal.
Yeah, because yeah. So I think we keep that the same because I think D'Angelo Hall was a little bit put out by the organization, like personally. And then he went to Oakland and didn't do shit. And he didn't really he went to Washington and recovered his career. But I don't know if uh Rex Ryan changes that. At that point, I don't know.
Probably not, especially with Thomas Dimitrov still here. Like, we didn't really talk about like how much power that he has now
Mm-hmm.
that if Rex were to stay, or
Well, see,
like I
and
can't remember
I'm
who
not
got hired
I'm
first.
not giving Thomas Dimitrov a pass because he made very bad decisions as far as signings go and how much he signed and restructuring contracts and things like that. That put us in a very big mess for a long time where we couldn't really
Goodness
do much anything.
gracious.
But as far as the draft goes, Thomas Dimitrov really tried to get what the guys the coaches wanted. Say what you will about the drafts and how they were, but he got when Mike Smith or when Dan Quinn came in, you really saw it with Dan Quinn. Mike Smith didn't really have an identity, but Dan Quinn wanted specific players, and he always got the guys that he wanted. Now that doesn't mean they always worked out. Most of the time they didn't, but um, and they usually worked out at the beginning, and then he got his hands on them and regressed them. But Thomas Dimitrov, I think, as far as the draft goes, Rex Ryan's going to have a lot of say in who's drafted with this team.
Yeah. So now that we brought in some extra pieces, we kept some things the same. I have the schedule pulled up here. Now, if I can just kind of zoom in a little bit, we can take a look at the results of the games that actually happened and figure out what could have changed. So, with the first loss being against the Bucks at Tampa, scores 24-9. Second one at Carolina, scores 24-9. The next one was against Philly, scores 27-14. Followed up with a shutout by Oakland. And then we lost to the Broncos 20-24. Bit of a close game. This was definitely a close game at this
Yeah.
team.
I think the New Orleans records would be a lot different with a Rex Ryan. Like, because there were so many games that we lost to New Orleans that we should not have. If we would have just put the boot on the throat and crushed them, we would.
Yeah, crush their souls, man.
Yeah.
I mean, because you can look back at the whole regime and you can just see that there were so many games that we should have won against New Orleans under, the Thomas Mitchell, Mike Smith, and Dan Quinn era. And it just goes back to like the defense, man. If you had a defense that would actually make a play, but again, you had that said coach that would put that player in a position to succeed, there could have been a lot more wins for Atlanta over New Orleans. Yes, you had Drew Brees and all that stuff, but one thing I can say about Rex, he knew how to scheme. He knew how to scheme their players. He knew how to put players again in a position like, yo, okay, I know what you're doing. This is what we're going to do. Oh, you're going to do this? Okay, we're going to do that, and I want you to stop it. That's how Rex Ryan used to run his defense. You go ahead.
And I don't know, some of the games may have changed, like if we'd have won or lost. But I think overall, for the record for that year, I think we're the same 11-5, 12-4, maybe 10-6, but probably 11-5. I think that we would be the same team record wise, but we would be different in a lot of other ways. I think that
probably at least of like how we played the game, how we prepared, and what our stats or whatever like individually would have looked like instead of as a team. Because like this was one of our last like solid defenses that we had.
Yeah, and I mean Rex Ryan's just going to make it better. I mean, I'm not saying like we're obviously not going to be gangbusters on defense year one under Rex, but we're going to be a lot better than we were. Like a lot better. And going on from the regular season to the postseason against the Cardinals, do you think that the third down where the ball, what was it, third down in like 18 that they had or something?
Yeah, it was the Keith Brooking play. Yeah, it was the Keith Brooking play.
Yeah. Do you think that happens with Rex Ryan? I don't think it does.
No. Hell no. It does not happen with a Rex Ryan. I
know how much that would have changed Matt Ryan's career at that point? Because if he beats the Cardinals there, the next game is that Jake Delhomme Panthers game where they laid the biggest egg ever. Like, we would have played them instead of, the Cardinals playing them because the Cardinals destroyed them.
And Fitzgerald just destroyed him just by himself.
Yeah. And the way, like, so I think if we have Rex Ryan year one, I think we go to the NFC Championship game. Now, I don't think we win. I don't think we go to the Super Bowl like the Cardinals do. I think the Eagles beat us.
Because what else is it?
I can see that because this is a brand new team,
Yeah.
This is a brand new team, brand new organization.
You got Donovan McNabb, Andy Reid. Like they know they've been there. They've been to NFC Championship games before. They had just been to the Super Bowl not too long ago.
Yeah.
Been there. I think
the Cardinals
Steelers versus Eagles in that Super Bowl.
And
yeah.
Let's just happen. And then we're speaking hypotheticals. Let's just say the Falcons did go to the Super Bowl. I don't think we would win because the Steelers had the number one overall defense that year. They were number one in total defense.
I don't think
it would have been a good sight, but against that defense, I don't know.
But I don't even think we get past the NFC Championship game that year. But think about how different Matt Ryan would look just off of that alone. His rookie year, making it to the NFC Championship game. Because here's the thing. The Cardinals, like, if you watch that 2008 Cardinals game, right? We were down by a score when that happened, that 3rd and 18 conversion, and then they were able to run up the clock. It was over. But, like, if you look at how, we started out slow on offense in that game, but by the end of the game, Matt Ryan had locked in on that defense, and, like, they were not stopping us. Like, we were moving the ball at will with them. And it would have probably been worse with a Shanahan, kind of thing. It would be a lot more aggressive.
With Chris Johnson.
And with Chris Johnson, yeah, I mean, I really, because I think if the defense gets a stop there, we win that game. Like I think if we get a stop there, Matt Ryan is driving us down and scoring and getting us in the lead. And obviously, once we get the lead, ain't no way Rex Ryan's letting them make a fourth quarter comeback. Like he ain't doing that.
And then by some chance, we were to, get an interception or make a stop on that drive, all we would have to do is run the clock. Because one
Mhm.
thing I really loved about Rex and how he was able to, tell his coaching staff, hey man, if we got the ball back, we're not giving it back to them. We're gonna run this. We're gonna
Right.
run this ball,
And that's
kill
why he
the
got to
clock.
an AFC Championship game with Mark Sanchez. He was just like, when we get a lead, we're doing everything we can to keep the lead. We ain't playing around with this. Um. So and
And
like
think
I
of
said,
the lesson that would have taught Kyle Shanahan early on.
oh yeah, I think he might have been a different.
Oh,
He
yeah.
might not have the same scheme, but I think
He would
Kyle
But
understand.
Shanahan is a very
he
smart
keeps
guy.
this game in his mind.
Because see, I don't everyone talks about his scheme, but I don't think the scheme is what makes Shanahan such a good coordinator. I think what makes Shanahan a good coordinator is he understands the game to a level that most people just don't. Like he knows, like when he looks at a defense, he doesn't just know like defensive coverages, right? He knows your freaking safety's assignment in your defense when this happens. Like how because obviously defensive coordinators know the holes of their defense, so they have their guys do different assignments given different route combinations, right? Or different things that they see. Well,
Right.
what Shanahan knows is he knows that if I show you this, you're going to do this. So I'm going to show you that, and then I'm going to play this other route off of it. So if you do what you're supposed to do in your scheme, you're still wrong. If you do your assignment exactly like you're coached to do it, I'm going to fuck you with it. Sorry,
And
my
that's the
French.
beauty of it too, when you really think about it.
Yeah,
That's the beauty of both Rex Ryan and Kyle Shanahan. They're basically saying to the team, we're gonna put this out here. We just want to see if you can stop it. If you can't stop it, we're gonna continue to do it until you do.
right.
You know.
Like that was the biggest issue with Dirk Cutter. He understood coverages, but like he would run basic routes that every defensive coordinator knows that seam routes are the weak points of cover three. Well, they do assignment adjustments to adjust for that when they're in cover three. So they're in a cover three shell, but maybe they're like the safety. You play a little bit tighter here if you see this route going. But he didn't have the knowledge that Kyle Shanahan did to play off of that. Because see, if you're beating the assignment, there's nothing that a coordinator can do if you're beating his player by doing exactly what he's coaching him to do. Like that was the genius of Kyle Shanahan. So, I mean, I don't know where he would have been in that. I don't think he would have been as polished as he was in 2015, 2016. But I think that
But there's some
yeah,
good tidbits of
I,
knowledge that he gets to pick up quicker than he does.
yeah, exactly.
that
And I think at
too.
this point he's learning too, like really fast. Like I think we're a lot better team in the playoffs with Shanahan than we would have been at the beginning of the year.
Plus, I feel like he would have understood situational football a lot quicker. Situation awareness because I think when he came in 2016, yes, the offense was aggressive. Yes, we had a historic offense. But what kills Kyle Shanahan, like previously, now is the fact is his lack of situation awareness. That's his issue.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been the one thing that has pretty much derailed his ascension because, at one point everybody was saying that, oh, Cal is a genius, and so on and so forth. But what has plagued him is his fact of not running the football. And as of right now, when I last checked, Kyle Shanahan is 53-0 in the fourth quarter. And that's all because he didn't run the football.
And you know that Rex Ryan, see, Dan Quinn, that was another failure he had. He didn't have, like, he let Kyle Shanahan just do his thing, which he should do, right? But you're still the head coach. So when you're in the fourth quarter and you're up 25, whatever we were, because I think they did score in the third quarter, but we're up multiple
fourth quarter
scores.
Was 28-9.
Yeah, we're up multiple scores in the fourth quarter. I'm not saying don't throw it at all, obviously, but we're run heavy at this point. Everything else is playing off the run, right? We're not playing with this. We're taking that clock down to at least 8 seconds. Yeah.
Yeah. To those, sorry to interrupt, but to those joining the stream, if you want to know, get a glimpse of what we're talking about, we're almost gonna actually kind of wrap this up, but because we spent all this time just talking about the year of 2008, like we haven't delved deep into the other.
We could do this maybe in multiple streams, maybe. I mean, like, because it's very interesting
enough.
I really like this
storm about it, because now, like the next year, we have Tony Gonzalez to think about.
Yeah, like, does that trade happen? I think it still does because you got who was it? Because Dimitrov and the GM for the Kansas City were from New England. Right?
Scott Pioli.
Scott Pioli, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They had like and then obviously Tony Gonzalez wanted to go to a place where he thought he could win a ring, and what that would probably entice him more that we went to the NFC Championship game to want to come here, because he even said in an interview the reason he came to Atlanta was Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan was the reason he came.
So now it's a situation where this offensive line is like still totally built. You have Matt Ryan that just had a prove himself year from his rookie year that brought this team to a potential NFC Championship appearance. Then you followed it up with another year of successful Roddy White, a successful Chris Johnson.
You had Tony
Mahaley as the lead fullback for that. Then you have Tony Gonzalez to add just a bit more spice to your season, because at the moment, like, we didn't have a whole lot of like firepower when it came to our tight ends. Like, our tight ends were like Justin Peel and, I think maybe like Ben Hartsock, Martinez, RG Crumpler. Yeah, we actually let go of him.
Yeah,
in the same offseason. So it's like, we needed someone there to fill that gap, and I don't know if we strike as a team to either like draft someone in the later rounds of this like 2008 draft class.
The Tony Gonzalez thing happens because I think that the biggest thing with that was Tony Gonzalez wanted out of Kansas City to go to a contender, and
so he takes a look at the Falcons that just gave him 2 playoff wins versus he's never even sniffed the playoffs at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was planning to retire too.
I think he's more enticed to come to Atlanta, and I think we still. I mean, you're not going to not trade for Tony Gonzalez if he wants to come to your team at that point in his career. Like, you're not going to be like, "Oh, Tony Gonzalez wants to come here." Nah, we'll just draft this guy in this, because we gave up a second-round pick for him. Who are we going to get in the second round that gives you the value that a Tony Gonzalez gives you? Even if it's like, obviously he played a lot longer than we would have thought he would have. But even if you only get 1 or 2 years, you're thinking in your head 1 or 2 years of Tony Gonzalez, you're taking that trade,
That's an investment.
Yeah.
Just for his knowledge.
And I think his career is actually better here under Rex Ryan. Like, I mean, listen, again, I don't want it to sound like we're just like, oh, it's just like going to be a perfect universe. There's going to be some bad things that happen on down the road.
There's always flaws. There's always flaws in everything.
Especially that first year. I mean, look at what Rex Ryan did in New York his first couple of years. Like, he turned that team completely around.
Yeah, 3 years, 2 back-to-back AFC Championship
And he had
appearances.
Mark
When they
Sanchez
had
as his quarterback. He would have
and
Matt Ryan in this scenario.
yeah, and you had like an old LT at this point, like as the lead back. So you have that to work with, and you're going to New England in the playoffs and beating them. You're going to Indianapolis and beating them. Like you're putting up a fight against Pittsburgh, whatever. Like you're putting up a fight against these top competitors in that class, just
Correct.
with the rest of them. Like in a matter of 3 years.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean I'm like I said, I'm sure we got to temper things to a point, but there is legitimate things like that would say that especially the first couple of years would have been a whole lot different under Ryan than it was under Mike Smith. Like because like I said, I've always talked about in 2008 we were a couple of plays away from an NFC Championship game because we are rolling. Yeah. The Panthers played. That was one of the worst performances of an NFL football team in a playoff game I've ever seen in my life. Like the Cardinals did nothing to win that game, and the Panthers did everything to lose it. So, and that's already getting you to an NFC Championship game if you just beat the Cardinals.
And then, obviously, if you like the series, we can explore more what-if scenarios. Like Coach, he offered up this suggestion. I think, what if Bill Parcells took the Falcons job? I would want to know like what year you're specifically referring to, so we can get more info and kind of get a deep dive like we did now.
Yeah.
But
I think we could do like a stream to cover it, like because there's so much to cover. Like there's so much things that would be different that I think this might take a few streams to get through. Obviously it might speed up a little bit more because we don't have to because there was a lot of we know
that we had to do.
Yeah, there was a lot of layers to peel. Like there's a lot of unpack. But I will say this topic is very interesting, man. Like it's like a bunch of what ifs, man. Like wow, like everything we've covered so far. It's like,
and wow. Honestly, it has value now because you want to learn from your mistakes. So this organization needs to learn from their mistakes of the old and do something different, which I think in a lot of respects they are with Arthur Smith. I think there's a lot of good things that Arthur Smith does. Now, the whole damn Deshaun Watson thing, but you can look at it from the point you're looking at being aggressive, like we want aggression. So is that
couldn't have been more aggressive than searching?
Yeah. I don't know how smart it was, but you know what? I think in the long run it might help our team because Matt Ryan, I want him on the team, but I would much rather him be on a winning organization.
And not to mention, this isn't just like us talking. Like this is also just like from the perspective that our division rivals didn't get him either.
Right.
Like we almost kind of pushed them out of the competition.
Yeah. Yeah, no. I mean, I think there is some positive things to I think the Matt Ryan time in Atlanta was time for us to part ways, just for mutual benefit. Because I didn't like Matt Ryan and having to waste his career in a rebuild again. I think.
Let's be honest, though. I mean, not to cut you off or anything. No. I feel like it was, in my opinion, Matt had to go to a better situation. The Indianapolis Colts are a team that's ready to win. They're a Super Bowl caliber team. And as far as the Falcons is currently constructed, we're not there yet. No. People have to understand that when it comes to our team right now, we're in year 1, year 2 of a rebuild here. It's going to take us some time. It's not going to be an overnight success. Right.
We're at least talking another 2 draft classes, at least.
At least minimum. At least a minimum 2. So it's going to be a couple years before we can actually compete. So I know there's a lot of people who say they're tired of losing and this, that, and the third. But hey, you're going to have to go through some heartache until you can actually, see some results.
And it's probably more beneficial to our team in a rebuild too, because Matt Ryan's going to keep you at a level that you're not going to really have the draft capital.
You're never going to sink too low.
Right. He's going to probably keep you in the mid tier, at least for, and that's not good for him and that's not good for us.
No, it's not, because you're not going to get those blue
The
chip
only-
prospects that you
the only
want. You're
thing-
not going to get those. Not I mean, to coincide with what you just said, if let's just say we did keep Matt Ryan, as you just stated, you're not going to get those blue chip prospects if Matt Ryan is still here. You're not going to get those, top
You might
tier
have one
passers, defensive tackle or cornerback or linebacker or offensive lineman. You're not going to get those guys if you're in the middle rounds of the first round, second round, third round. You're not going to get those high value picks.
No, you're not.
And to kind of go back on the whole Deshaun Watson scenario, that would have been good for the Falcons anyway, because you're giving up draft capital, valuable draft capital.
And that's what pisses me off the most. Is like you're trying to rebuild this team and you're taking away the one thing you need to do it.
You're giving up 3 first round picks. Come on, man, that's suicide for an organization. That's suicide.
And it was almost like, because I kind of think that might have been in the back of their head. That might have been like they didn't really want Deshaun, but they wanted to like scare off the division, or raise the price at least for the division, right. Getting him, something like that. I don't know. Like the biggest thing for me for the Deshaun thing, they should have called Matt and told him beforehand that they were gonna be going. Like, he should not have had to learn that through social media, and we know that to be the case because that's straight from his wife.
So I mean, not only his wife.
Later on with the interview that Matt Ryan had with DJ Shockley.
Yeah, Katie. What was her name? Matthew Stafford's wife, Kelly Stafford.
Yeah, that's the same thing.
But yeah, man, that was a that was a mess in itself, man.
Yeah, but if that's that's the worst thing they do, like, it's not terrible, because I think like it was time to move on from Matt Ryan for his sake, and for our sake. To we just weren't like we
weren't ready for
dropped
him.
The ball with Matt Ryan. We dropped the ball hard, and this is why we're going through this scenario, because in this scenario, I don't think that Matt Ryan's career would have been wasted in Atlanta.
For a year, we were already putting playoff wins to his name.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. If we had a Rex Ryan here, the Falcons would have been 0-3 in the playoffs at that time, because the first 3 years we were going to the playoffs and we were losing, And then you had the conversation at that time where, this franchise, they've been to the playoffs and now they're 0-3 in the playoffs.
Can Matt Ryan win a playoff game? Oh no, we've never seen him do it.
Next season is going to be interesting because we have the whole Matt Ryan injury thing to contend with, and Chris Redmond and all that stuff. Because there were some games like that were winnable, and during that time that Matt Ryan was injured, and like we went 9-7 that year. Like you talk about maybe changing a few wins here and there. We might be back in the playoffs.
We're gonna go back to those Saints games because just those 2 games alone, they may not have made the playoffs. We take their spot in the playoff season because we have the tiebreaker. We end up in the same record.
Yeah,
and that just
takes 2009 is going to be very interesting. Like, it's not going to be all good either. Like I said, we're definitely going to have some stuff that doesn't work out because nobody's perfect, right? But this direction would have been so much better overall. Like, it just
better. I appreciate the $4.99 super chat from Red Swan.
Got the $4.99.
$4.99. Yeah, guys, share this out. Like, I mean, I think this is a very interesting topic. Like, just because it kind of like makes you think. Like, are we doing the same things now, or are we different? Are we going to repeat the process, or are we doing something a little bit different this time that
Yeah.
might
Does
change?
Arthur Smith become like a thinner offensive version of a Rex Ryan?
Yeah. Or is he like a Mike Smith? Is he more like Mike Smith? We don't, we'll see.
Well, so far he definitely ain't no.
Yeah. I mean, he's already proven
Well, he's
he's
definitely
shooting for
growing
the
on me, man.
fences,
I
Yeah,
will say this about Arthur Smith. He's really starting to become a major favorite with me right now. The reason why I say that is the fact that he's no nonsense. You know,
yeah. He
he
don't put
does
up Dean Pease. I
oh
love Dean Pease. Dean Pease is what we need
man,
as a coordinator.
oh. But I mean, to me, both Dean Pease and Arthur Smith, the one thing I could say that separates them from Dan Quinn and Mike Smith is that they call out the media. Mike Smith and Dan Quinn didn't do that.
Yeah.
They didn't do that.
Well, and but Dan Quinn he could talk a big game, but like when it came down to it, like he didn't. He was a Mike Smith with a bolsterous voice.
That's it. I mean, and I'm glad you said that because to me, with Dan Quinn, I just got tired of I'm
Well,
fired up and whoa, we're pissed. Like, dude,
and
come on now. You're just selling a bunch of wolf tickets.
here's the
Cut it
thing:
out.
all he was doing was trying to rebuild Seattle and Atlanta. Like he was not trying to like. You want a guy like Dean Pease. He's going to see the guys he has, and he has obviously his scheme that he runs, and it's complex and everything. But he's also looking at the players, and he's like, "What can I do to put this guy in the best position to win?" If I don't see a position in my defense for him, he's gone. Like he's out. Like he's not. But like he got Keon O'Neal, but Keon O'Neal was just Cam Chancellor to Dan Quinn. He wasn't Keon O'Neal. He didn't let Keon because Keon O'Neal had some similarities to Cam Chancellor, but he's still a different player than Cam Chancellor.
Yeah, the
Right?
thing is, Cam Chancellor was like 6'2", 6'3".
Yeah.
Kiki was like, I think he was like 6'6". I think about 6.
Yeah.
He was a 6-footer, 6'1". But the thing about Kiki is that he was terrible in coverage, man. Bam
Yeah.
Bam was excellent in coverage, man. You could put him at strong safety and free safety.
But
He
I
was
think
versatile.
as good as Cam Chancellor was in the run game, I think like uh Keon O'Neal might have been a little better. Like he had that instinct. And dude, when he came, he came. He brought the wood every time. Like you can't say anything but he's not Cam Chancellor. So if you try to make him be Cam Chancellor, he's gonna fail. Like there's no, like you have to let Keon O'Neal be Keon O'Neal.
Yeah. And for me, I've said this with Mad Mike and the rest of the fellas. To me, Kiki would have been better as a linebacker. Like just
Yeah.
imagine if and again we're speaking hypotheticals here. We're just spitballing. Let's just say by any chance he came around Rex Ryan. Rex Ryan was able to get somebody like a Kiki or something. Hey, he would have knew like, yo, we're not gonna have you at safety. We're gonna have you at linebacker. Because I feel like being a linebacker would have suited you more than just being a um, um, strong safety. Because one thing about Kiki, I mean, yes, for as good as he was to a fault, he was prone to injuries, man. He always tore his ACL for some
Well,
apparent reason.
and this is
Um,
gonna. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just wanted to bring this point up.
that's fine.
The good thing about this coaching staff, they don't view players by position, and they've said this. They want versatility in positions because they don't view players as like they're stuck in this like you're a safety, so you play safety and you do this and this.
They
Like
view him as people.
they view him as a player. What do you give me as a player and as a person? Like what talents do you have and what can I what positions can I put you in no matter what the labeling of your position is? Like where
Yeah,
can I put you on the field that's going to make those things that you bring to the table shine?
Yeah, how can you
Where do you
contribute?
want to be? Where do you think you're going to be at your best at? Quarterback pass? You want to play safety? Well, you know what? Forget
Yeah.
it. You can go play
Quarterback
safety.
pass and then play running back this play, and then play wide receiver the next play, and then like
Be
play
tight
some
end the
wide
next
pass.
play. Like, take the snap.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Or Kyle Pitts, you want to play inline tight end or like wide receiver, or maybe we'll put you in
Mhm.
the backfield. I don't know. We'll see what happens there. You know.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, one thing I can say about this coaching staff that we have now. They're all about like, okay, how can I fit this player here? How can I put this player there? Like, what can I do to make them successful? And as a player, what can I contribute to the team to help us win football games?
Because
It's that
yeah,
chemistry, you know?
yeah, because all Dan Quinn was looking at is where's my next Bobby Wagner? Where's my next Errol Thomas? Where's my next Cam Chancellor? Where's my Richard Sherman at? Like
You definitely
that's
got a couple
honestly
Brandon
how he
Browners
views
though.
everything. Like that's and he drafted players that he thought would fill that role, but like even if they could mimic that role, they're not those
Yeah.
players.
They're not those players at all because when you think about it, I'm glad you're kind of bringing this to the forefront. Like I used to tell people in Seattle, when you had guys like a Clinton McDonald, a Tony McDaniel, a Red Ryan, a Cliff Averill, a Michael Bennett, a Brian Maxwell, who else can I bring?
KJ Wright.
Yes, a KJ Wright, your Brandon Browner. All
Right.
those players had their own. They had their own flavor. You know, it's almost like Dan
And
Quinn was like the chef, but let's not forget
he
Gus
didn't make that. He
Bradley.
didn't build
I mean,
that team. That
yeah,
wasn't his team.
that
He
wasn't
came
his team.
in. Yeah.
Because
So
Gus Bradley, I don't know, because Gus Bradley was the defensive coordinator
yeah.
for most of that time. Because him, John Schneider, and Pete Carroll helped build that defense. The thing
Yeah.
about
And you know
is that,
what?
go
Pete
ahead.
Carroll and Gus Bradley, they weren't working off a blueprint. They were getting guys that brought specific. They're doing what Dan Quinn or not Dan Quinn, Dean Pease and Arthur Smith are doing right now to that team back then. Because think about it, no one had the blueprint of a former wide receiver turned cornerback drafted in the what was it, Sherman 5th round,
It
like
was
long
about
arm, like that came after the Legion of Boom. Everyone started drafting the long arm, tall cornerbacks after that. But before then, that was not the blueprint. Your blueprints were your damn Rex Ryan defenses, where your yeah, you know. But even before that, Rex Ryan defenses weren't a blueprint either. They kind of were a little bit, but not really. Like like the good coaches are the innovators. Like if you're just trying to mimic somebody else's build, you're already behind the game. You're already lost. So
With all this being said, hopefully we can kind of come back for another edition of this.
mhm.
We're gonna have to close this off right here as we go. Any final thoughts you have to say about this, or we just want to kind of save them for next
Well,
time that we
I just want
have
to say
set this
like
up?
if you guys enjoyed this, like share it out because we're gonna go like I feel like we should go all the way through with this. Like maybe do obviously we're not gonna focus on just one season each stream. Like there's gonna be multiple seasons now that we've got the framework kind of
Yeah,
constructed. But there was just so much to dig into and so many layers to peel back on this first stream.
and
You know,
plus you guys haven't been on the scene for a while, so
yeah. So
it's a bit natural for you guys to kind of extend your conversations.
well, see, like with me, like I feel like this is the best way to do it, though. Like, there's so many like variables. I think that we can really go through that. It's kind of a
Yeah, I agree. Because there's a lot of layers to peel
like we
off.
could just we
It's
could.
like this whole conversation is like a little orange, and we're just peeling off the outside layer, and we're just getting deeper into um, if we would have had a head coach such as Rex Ryan, how things would have turned out. But I feel like this conversation alone should be a multi-part series because in order for us to learn to get better in the future, we have to learn, pretty much learn from the mistakes of the past. But I really feel like this should be something that we should discuss a lot more. Hopefully we could probably get Mad Mike and a few of the other guys, maybe Maggie and a few others, and we all have a discussion about it because this is very interesting.
Yeah, because the other day they were going off on a couple of other like connections with the whole tampering situation. I was like, oh my gosh, like I gotta break out my whiteboard again just to keep up with the conversation. So, but yeah, we'll revisit this. Once again, I've been Noah. Beside me has been Rashad. Underneath us has been Ripcliffe. Appreciate you guys checking us out.
Yeah, for sure.
We're gonna go a little bit more condensed next time. That's what we're gonna be shooting for. And until next time, enjoy the football while you have it.
Yeah, take advantage of it. Man. Take advantage of it.
This may not be some good games at the moment, but
yeah,
it's what you wanted. So pay attention. All right, y'all, take care.
Yeah, see you.
All right, y'all.